had really, really good listing months a few months back, and then we just closed them, which was that statistic that Heather had. So while we're busy trying to get our inspection issues taken care of and whatnot, we now look like we're going to cycle back into getting more listings, and it's super competitive in our environment right now. And so I wanted to talk to you and try and come up with some talking points for your clients that are thinking about listing their homes, because this is truly amazing time, and there's absolutely some phenomenal information I have here regarding housing in Portland. So we'll start with the first one. Let me get my iPad going here. Okay, so this is first statistics. This is the housing deficit. So if you look over at Oregon, we're the dark blue over there, we show a housing deficit of 8.8. I believe that's an 8. It's a little bit shrunken. Can you enlarge that by any chance, Austin? Oops, right there. So the comment is the percent of the housing stock, the housing supply deficit varies from -7, which means they have more than enough, to 10% deficit. And excluding the District of Columbia, Oregon, right there, has the highest deficit, nearly 9% in the country. This is the United States. Oregon has the largest deficit of housing, followed by California. And so this is our challenge, right? My concern for us is we're seasonal. We know that, and Peter's going to follow up on this, we know that our inventory goes down into the winter just normally. Weather gets worse, people get thinking about holidays, they don't list their houses. Right now we have a deficit, and we're heading into the winter. And so there is going to be a shortage of things to sell going into the holidays, and that's why we're going to focus on different ways that you can, different statistics that you can use to try and get people to list their homes today and why they should. So Oregon has the highest deficit of housing in the entire United States. Okay, next slide. Oops, I got to get rid of that. There you go. Okay, so this is what the deficit looks like if you consider in-migration, which is an interesting statistic. So the housing stock, when you consider how many people are going to move into Portland, the housing deficit looks like 9.23. We have nearly a 10% deficit of housing when you factor in the average number of people that move into Oregon in the last 10 years. That's what that statistic is. So before, it was given our average in terms of sales. Now we're looking at what happens when you consider the inflows. And so let's see. So Michigan, they use an example that Michigan changed from a deficit to a surplus by the time you considered how many people are moving to Michigan and what that's going to do. So this comment is, given the severity of the problem, states are addressing the issue of supply shortages by taking legislative action. So states like California, Oregon, Minnesota, and North Carolina have passed legislation to eliminate single-family exclusive zoning. That's going to start to show up next year and the year after, because our Oregon legislature passed a bill that eliminated single-family housing. So all these developments that have one home in them are going to stop probably in 2022. The Oregon legislature gave the counties and the cities 2 years to implement that code so that people understand what they can do and not do. So what we're going to see to compensate for this deficit is we're going to start to see higher density even in existing neighborhoods and subdivisions. All right, next slide. All right, let's see. This is the one I was looking at right there. Oops, hang on a sec. I'll clear. Go right there. The number of new listings of Portland area homes in April dropped 17.9% compared to the month before, and 32% compared to a year ago. That was April. Now we're starting to come back a little bit, but this is pretty significant. That COVID kept people from putting their homes on the market, right? All the concerns about health and traffic through their homes and everything else. Right now, we are in a sweet spot. The sweet spot is that there was a backlog of people that wanted to do something in real estate. And as we've emerged from COVID, we find that the interest rates are lower. And that's why we're having such amazing statistics. It's Keller Williams, it's the country, it's the region is the #1 region in the country. Our region is supporting us right now. There's a lot of wind at our back right now in the Northwest, and Oregon is no exception. All right, next one. Let's see, this top statistics. So this is a chart of what I was just talking about. You can see month to month what happened, and you can see 2016, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So if we look at through the end of the year, we can see that for 2020, which is right behind the yellow, you can barely see it, we were reasonably good for closed sales. And this is basically past 5 calendar years for Portland. You can see what happened last year. This is our seasonality. It shows up in the Altos reports, and you can see where we were at the end of the year. Okay, go to the next one. All right, so this is Portland housing inventory. Inventory is down, prices are up. This is commentary from June. So Portland's housing inventory is at its lowest level in 7 years. So now there was an article that talked about why that's the case. Why is Portland so popular right now? As we head into the summer, the inventory stands at a 3-month supply heading into the summer, a level not seen since the peak of 2007. And guess what? I think Peter's going to show you that the inventory is not a 3-month supply in August. It's actually lower than that right now. So we know from history that a 6-month supply of real estate is a balanced market. A balanced market meaning you basically have as many listings as you have buyers. You don't have the multiple offer situations. People aren't worried about things selling overnight. So right now we're certainly in a non-balanced market. So this is what's interesting. If you think about the average cost of a home in Portland in 2013, it was $279,000. A year later, it went to $314,000. So when we came out of, and I have another chart for this, when we came out of the downturn, remember in 2012 and 13, they started driving down interest rates. Really, it was early 13. And that's when we started to see the big appreciation. And then look at this, Portland is hot. It is a popular destination for relocation, we know that. According to United Van Lines, during 2013, we saw a 42% increase, and right now it's actually higher. So according to the van line companies, the Rose City is attractive to millennials, and retirees also like the green space, the massive transit, the vibrant arts. So so we are still a hot place to be, and COVID is actually probably contributing to that influx of people as well. All right, next one. Let's see, is this the same one? This is the same one. There we go. Okay, and this is from Zillow. So if you have people talking about whether they should sell their home or not, this is the forecast from Zillow through the first quarter of 2021. So let's look at what they see happening through the winter. We are here, so today we're, roughly in this range right here. And if you look back at what's been happening with Portland average prices, we've been somewhat stable. And Zillow thinks we're going to see a little bit of a dip in the winter, and then it's going to start back up in 2021. So if I have, oops, excuse me, if I have people that are talking to me about, well, I'm thinking that in fact, I have one right now. I'm thinking that maybe I should just hold off because I'm not getting my price and I should put it on the market in the spring. If I had this one with me, I would be pulling this out. Everyone knows Zillow, so this is going to have credibility. And I'm going to say to them, look, does that make sense given what Zillow's predicting? And it sort of starts to look like we've maxed out on appreciation for a while. There's little pockets where we're still getting appreciation. This is Portland in general. All right, next. All right, so let's see. Here you go. This is why I put this up. This is based on Zillow information published on this particular website. And it said that in the last 5 years, the Portland metropolitan area appreciated 57%. So if I'm sitting down with someone and they're saying to me, we're thinking about buying a rental house, this chart starts to make that look really compelling. If I'm thinking about if I'm meeting with someone that is thinking about moving up, appreciation at the higher end can be more at the lower end, depending on where you are in the cycle. If we look at the last 10 years, it was 41%. This goes back into the years before it really ramped up and accelerated. So this first number is 2015 through probably the end of 2014 to 19. And then the last 10 years probably goes 2009 to 41. But this is, if you're wealth planning, if you've got someone that wants to buy a rental house or anything else, this number is a retirement plan, right? We've talked about that in our wealth building classes. Look at what's happened to Portland houses in the last 20 years. That is a staggering number. Does it make sense to own a rental house now for the next 20 years when you look at all the money the government is pushing out all around the world, especially the United States? If there's any doubt that there won't be inflation in the near future, which will translate into appreciation, you need to read more. So the last 20 years, this is what happened. If you bought a rental house, it went up basically 2.5 times, 1.5 times. So it went up, if you bought something for 500, it was $1 million, $1.2 million, $1.1 million. So I think that's the last one, right, Austin? Yep. All right. So those were my commentaries about conversations you could be having with people who are thinking about selling. That one Zillow chart suggests that we probably have reached the maximum pricing in general. And if people are thinking they're going to get more appreciation next year, I would pull that chart out to say, I'm not so sure that's going to happen. This is what Zillow says. And we don't know if they're right or not. But what we do know is we're having all-time highs right now. I believe that 501, Heather, is that a record for a market center, 501?
Average sales price?
It is.
We're unmuted. Okay.
Did you mean the average sales price of 501?
Yeah.
We've had a couple of months that were right around that this year. So, but that's probably going to be our trend for 2020.
Yeah. So we're pushing an average price of 500 for our market center. And that suggests that people have captured some really strong appreciation. And this might be a really good time to maybe borrow against their house at a super low rate and buy a rental house, maybe sell to move to their next house. This is a great time to be buying and selling and locking in profit. All right, Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Dwight. We love all your resources. So great information. Peter, you are up for more words of wisdom from our owners.
Well, the caveat is Dwight called me a few minutes ago and said, "You're on." So let's see. What do you see when I do that? Not what I'm looking for. You see my screen?
No,
Not yet. Austin, is Peter enabled to share? Yeah. Okay, Peter, did you check the little green share screen box?
I have.
Then a box opens up to choose which screen you're sharing.
Yeah, I'm doing that. Oh, I see. Then I got to push the share button. So do you see a chart?
Yes, now we do.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take just some of this is going to be, I mean, Dwight covered some of it, but this is more specific to the market. And the thick blue line here, everybody can see, is 2020. Anybody have a guess where COVID-19 hit? But what's interesting here is the recovery is higher than any time since 2015 for the number of offers. And then, let's see, we can figure out how to make this move. And closed sales, of course, are 45 to 60 days behind pending sales. It is conceivable that 2020 will reach the peak of 2015 next month, in my view. So even though there's a lot of no inventory, blah, 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 let me tell you, this is the greatest time in real estate for a long time. I mean, it's really pretty exciting. Dwight asked me to talk about inventory. I'm going to get there a little bit, but these are days on market. They're, for all of Portland, they're coming up a bit, and everything changes based on where you are. But looking at inventory since 2017, it's kind of interesting where 2017 is in November. If you take, what I did was I took the current downflow or the decline in inventory for the current year, and I moved it over and moved it into January or same time period in November of 18 and November, starting November 2017. And you can tell that this is unique. We are, other than a very short reprise for the impact of COVID-19, we're on a downward trend, and inventory is at or near the lowest point. And I suspect in when the numbers come out for July, we may set a record. Make sense? So decided to look at our various things. And home court here in Tigard, Tualatin, you can see that the Altos report says that we're at 62 is a very strong seller's market. And you can go back a long way before you start seeing numbers like this in Portland area. 62 is huge. They've usually been around 30 or 40, between 40, 45. But what's interesting, whoops, hey, come back. I got fast fingers here. So here's in November. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to throw in, can you just go back to that last chart? Because we need to make it clear that the article I read said that the inventory was at 3 months, and look at where it's at today. It looks like a month and a half, right?
Yeah. We've only been above 3 months 2 times since 2017. That's August or September of 18 and January of 19. Yeah, so it's way down. But if you look at where we were in the trends in November or May, June last year, say June last year, inventory was starting to build. Every year this would be consistent. If you go back, you look at where we're going now, inventory peaked in June, and it's on the downward trend, and the 7-day average is going to continue to pull the 30-day average lower. So we're at basically a record low for this time of year. Do you agree with that, Dwight?
That's why I wanted you to talk about it. And then I want you to also give us your opinion on what you think that means going into the winter.
Well, it means I'll finish with that. Let me go through a couple of the deals. So the question typically I would have then when inventory is down like this is what's it doing to prices? And the answer, at least in Tigard, is not much. So when I'm talking to a seller and they say they want to wait to list their home, other than interest rates and and the highest deficit in the U.S., this basically says that waiting isn't going to buy you anything. Prices are going to remain the same, and we throw in Dwight's Zillow report, and there's a possibility that they're going to go down. So anybody who's waiting, I always ask my clients, are you waiting for the interest rates to go up to 5.5 so that we have no buyers, or do you want to take advantage of that 2.5 to 3% interest rates that are currently available? So that's Tigard. Tualatin, again, typically a year ago or any time in the past, inventory would start building now. We're on a slight downward trend for Tualatin. And maybe Dwight, you can explain the top segment here. I can't, but everything else is just pretty much flat as far as pricing goes. So again, the low inventory is not driving up pricing.
So-
Go ahead.
Well, that looks like that was the Market Action Index report, and the Market Action Index report for the Altos report is basically a weighted average. It considers inventory. It considers, well, months of inventory. It considers sell price to list price, what the owners are discounting or what they're selling above. It considers average days on the market, etc. So it's a weighted average. And so what it ends up meaning is, if you look at the upper chart in the left, this is a seller's market. It's an extreme seller's market right now. And so the graph itself shows exactly where we are. And if you go back, we haven't touched this point that I can remember in the last 5 years looking at the Altos report. So,
I mean, I've never seen an 83.
yeah. So, okay. So this is, what is this? This is persistent upshift in the Market Action Index. Okay. So it's affecting all price categories.
But that's, so if you've got a listing appointment in Tualatin today or the next couple of days, I would show them this and suggest that it's probably as good a time as it's ever going to be for the foreseeable future. Sherwood, there's down to 58. What's that, a 15-point difference? Inventory again is going down in Sherwood. Typically, it would be building. Prices again are flat, except going up a little bit in the higher end. Then we get to Lake Oswego. Lake Oswego is the only market segment that I looked at today that seems to be somewhat normal cycle-wise. So inventory is building a little bit, and that is probably because of the average price point. And it looks like it's a little sporadic there. Dwight, you're the LO expert around here. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, the one thing I've seen, I haven't looked at the Market Action Index for inventory, but in driving around, it looks to me like I am seeing quite a few more signs. So, but I haven't looked at it. So what do you have right there? You've got, this is
the Market Action Index by segment.
Yeah. So, well, right now, if you look at all segments, they're all turning up. So in Lake Oswego, the easy conclusion is that we've bounced back up. If you look at the red one, that stands out the most. We were seeing softness in the seller's position, and now it's reversing. This could be a function also, Peter, of having really, really competitive rates in jumbo loans right now. So remember, for a while there, after COVID, the lenders weren't really making jumbo loans. In fact, we had we had our Market Center Partners Academy on talking about, what was the availability of jumbo loans, because I had some sales in that range that were going on in May, and in both cases they had changed lenders because they ended up not getting qualified, so they had to go with different lenders. So there's more financing out there. I think the Fed is buying all the jumbo loans right now to keep that segment of the market liquid, which is good news for people in the upper end.
Okay. Then the last thing we looked at is West Lynn, that kind of matches everything. Most of the other segments, except for Lake Oswego, inventory would typically be on the rise. It's going down. And they're same kind of deal with, looks a little bit more like Lake Oswego in the upper end, which would be normal. So that's basically what I had. But when I go out, had a conversation before the meeting today with a client that I met on my listings. Hello. And basically he said, well, let's meet in 2 weeks. And I said, when you look at interest rates, you look at inventory, you look at whatever, how about I just send you a listing agreement, you sign it, and I'll get my stager over this week so that we can be on the market by a week from Thursday. And I haven't ever seen his house yet, so we have a rather large range on the listing agreement, but much to my joy and surprise, he said, okay, just send it over, we'll sign it and get it back, let's get this thing going. I've met this guy once, but the market stats are so compelling for a seller right now that we have the ability to push things forward rather quickly. And Dwight talked a little bit about Keller Mortgage. I want to get on my soapbox just for a minute. If you're not using Keller Mortgage as a major portion of the benefit of working with you as a Keller Williams agent, you're really missing the point. We have had at least 2 of our listings that we've taken in the last 2 weeks where I can specifically point to that moment in time when I said, and here's what we can offer the buyers on your home. We can offer Keller Mortgage, and it's exclusive to us. And that was, besides my vivacious personality and incredible good looks, that was the thing that turned it around. And you need to, if you're not comfortable with that, find out what you need to know. Talk to Tanya. My office door is open, and we're actually in the office a lot these days. And you got the interest rates, and if you're going to be a seller, don't wait. And the other last piece I would say is that because of COVID-19 and everything else, there is a tremendous amount of uncertainty. We know what's going on today and for the next couple of weeks, but beyond that, next fall, next spring, who knows what's going to go on. So now is the time. That's kind of all I got to throw into the ring today.
Thank you, Peter. Such good info. And so all of this info that Dwight and Peter showed us, it's just numbers, right? If you bring it and you can't speak intelligently to your buyers and sellers about what that means to them, right? So hopefully you all got some good points about what those graphics and charts mean. And, like Peter just told us that story of they speak for themselves. So much so that a client he had met once just signed the listing agreement because there's a lot of credibility in third-party stats. Sometimes people have asked where that rating on the Altos report with the how's the market rating, that is an Altos rating. If anyone was curious, I've had people ask about what is that rating. So it's just an Altos rating, but the Altos report has been out for a long time. So it's pretty reliable rating. And all of you can access the Altos reports. If you do not get them now, just reach out to anyone at the title companies and they will sign you up. We'll post the links to the articles that Dwight shared. does anyone else have any comments or takeaways or things that they learned today that they feel they're going to go shout from the rooftops to their clients this week?
I'd just like to make one comment about the Altos report. People said, "What is this?" I said, "It's something that's put together by people who are a lot smarter than I am." And the last thing that I've managed to meet, or been lucky enough to meet some of the new agents that Karine is bringing into the office. Way to go! And I asked each one of them if anybody had yet talked to them about a buyer broker agreement. So I would like to throw out there that if any of you are not using buyer broker agreements with your buyers, give me a call, come by my office, and we'll talk about why you should always, in my view, there are other opinions, always use a buyer broker agreement to assure that your time and expertise is rewarded when that client buys a house. And it's something that I think difficult for newer agents to ask about. But again, I just like to offer my opinion and systems and strategies in using those to make sure that you get rewarded for your efforts. So I wanted to throw that out.
Peter, I would like to ask you a question. So is it possible that a buyer broker agreement is even more important in a really, really low inventory market where people suddenly see something come up and then go buy it through the listing agent because it's going to sell, it's going to have 3 offers the next day?
It is so incredibly important. And until you've had this experience, which has happened to all of us at some point, which Dwight just mentioned, is you show somebody, you spend hours and days trying to find houses. You show them a few. Sunday morning, you're going to church, and they get on Zillow, and there's a open house from 10 to 12 in the area they wanted to be. They go there, and the agent says, "Yeah, but if you want this house, you better write with me right now because I'm pretty sure there are going to be multiple offers. But if you do this right now, I'm sure we can get it done." And you walk away with nothing. Under a buyer broker agreement, you will get paid. And it is more important now than I think than it's ever been. So.
Correct. This next 6 months, maybe even into this next summer, is going to be a time where we will hear more stories about realtors showing 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 homes to buyers. And then suddenly something comes up and they rush out and buy it because they don't feel like it's time to bring their realtor in.
And you know, the mindset is this: all we have to offer is our time and our expertise. And if you're brand new to the business and you're a solo agent and you don't think you have that expertise, you're missing the fact that this is Keller Williams Portland Premier, and every experienced seasoned agent here that I know of is willing to help you. We are all part of your team. So when you go and sit down with somebody, you explain to them very simply that this is an agreement that doesn't cost them anything, but it does establish a fiduciary relationship, which gives me as your agent the ability to hold a stronger negotiating position with the seller, and et cetera, et cetera. This is too long a discussion for the 5 minutes we got left. But you are a professional. There's no difference between you and an attorney or a doctor or anybody else, and you need to be paid for your time and your expertise. And the only way to assure in working with buyers that that's going to happen is through a buyer broker agreement. And they are benign, they are simple, you understand them. So feel free to stop by and chat with me.
Peter?
Yes.
Peter, I think that a buyer should be asking to sign an agreement that would require you to call them. If the perfect house comes along, your obligation is to reach out to your client base. So if they have a buyer broker agreement, they can count on you calling them.
Good point.
And if they decline the buyer broker agreement, say, "I'll call you if I can, but you know, this is how you can be assured that I will call you when I see something that should fit you.
And by the way, 32% of the people, 33% of the buyers last year found their home because the realtor brought it to them. So do you want to be
Right.
part of that?
Yeah, if I was a buyer, I'd be signing a buyer broker agreement because it holds you to calling me.
John, of all of your time I've been doing that, I've never taken that approach, and it's fantastic. Thank you.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah, I had the luxury of sitting right outside Peter's office when I was an agent. At first I told Peter, oh, that's weird. I don't know if I want to do that. And then I just started using the buyer broker agreement, and it's not even a thing, right? It just establishes you as being more professional. It kind of also creates that expectation that your time is very valuable because you are a resource. So, but Peter will help you if you have questions about that. If enough people are interested, maybe we do a little class on that or something. So something to think about there. But you know, I'm very appreciative that we have our two great owners who are not too busy to share their best practices and help agents. And our principal broker, I talked to a lot of agents from other companies, and one of the biggest complaint is that they can't get a hold of their principal broker. So we are just so lucky to have such an involved leadership and staff here. So remember, we're all here to support your business in any ways we can. But thank you guys again for great info, and reach out if you need help. And I hope everyone has a great day.
Peter, when you do the buyer broker agreement, send your zip form cover sheet, have them provide you their emails, their phone numbers, their proper spellings at the same time as the buyer broker agreement. Then you're locked and loaded.
Good idea.
Mm-hmm. And amazing job on July. We are so proud of y'all. If we had some party music, we'd put it on. Austin, do the party music.